Cyber Knight's Flashpoint is a cyberpunk-themed game with some familiar XCOM-styled mechanics, but it really is much more than that. Plan and execute elaborate heists with squad tactics, abilities, weapon modding, and an overworld that includes factions, safe houses, and dynamic storytelling that evolves with who you work with, take on missions, and what they do. If you've been looking for full character customization in one of these games, that's here too, including names, looks, and massive skill trees. And the developers have a firm policy to never wipe or push an update that breaks any previous version saved games, which is great because this game literally gets updated multiple times a week, and it's been that way since early access. An already deep game with a long roadmap of support ahead of it, this is one that any tactics fan should at least try. Zephon is a sci-fi, turn-based 4X game that might look familiar if you've played Gladius. This is from the same developers and built on the same systems, but with a lot of tweaks and an original post-apocalyptic world. Deal with everything from mutated wildlife, rogue military robots, and even eldritch threats as one of 3 factions trying to find their way and fight for power in this dark, dark future. The lore is there if you want to dive into it, and it's pretty good, as well as great graphics, combat, and surprisingly deep diplomacy systems that feel like they actually mean something. The developers also recently released one of 2 DLCs coming this year, adding even more to this crazy post-apocalyptic sci-fi world. Chains of Freedom is a recent release that I would compare to Mutant Year Zero. Explore post-apocalyptic Eastern Europe in real time, uncovering a deep conspiracy and mind control plot, all while fighting off paramilitary cults and monsters in turn-based tactics battles. Any character can use any weapon, but the real variety comes in the form of biocrystals, which can be found and swapped out at will, giving your character special abilities or advantages in combat and making for some really fun builds. I personally enjoyed the late game Horde-style battles, but they can be very challenging. Chains of Freedom is also fairly linear, with the full story coming in at around 25 hours, but the developers have recently put out a huge update, making turn timers optional and addressing a lot of the community feedback, so there's never been a better time to try this game. If you ever wanted to play the alien side of XCOM, Attack of the Earthlings is like that. Kind of. This is a relatively straightforward and simple turn-based tactics game with a big focus on satire, dark humor, and tactical stealth gameplay. You'll take control of the Swarmers, an insectoid race whose planet is being invaded by a massively dysfunctional drilling corporation. Set traps, take control of unsuspecting humans, and use their tissues to upgrade your units with unique roles and abilities. While this game is a lot of fun, it can be completed in 10 hours or less, and the stealth-focused style of gameplay might feel a little bit slow for some. Because of this, I can really only recommend it on sale. Forgotten But Unbroken is a World War II turn-based tactics game focused on historical events and accuracy, as well as the true stories of resistance soldiers in Europe throughout the course of the war. Important to note since my review of this game at launch is that the developers have been hard at work and listening to the community, adding in difficulty settings in a skirmish mode along with a monthly leaderboard and league system. They actually just dropped their biggest update yet, with a new story mission, silent weapons, and the stealth system being a little bit more viable, as well as a ton of changes to the base camp and morale mechanics. Songs of Silence is a turn-based 4X auto-battler with a ridiculously good-looking art style and presentation, although there's a lot going on that'll grab your attention and can make the UI feel a little cluttered or hard to read sometimes. In addition, it incorporates some card mechanics, and if you're still here with me after that and auto-battler, this one might be for you. Command your heroes and armies from 3 different factions and over 110 unique units through a story-driven campaign, or do frantic skirmishes with up to 6 players in co-op or free-for-all modes across over 100 randomized maps. And if that's not enough, handcrafted scenarios are available for challenges and to flesh out storylines and characters from the main campaign. There really is a lot of content here. Songs of Silence also recently released a DLC that includes a second story campaign if you enjoy the first one. If you're into tabletop or co-op turn-based tactics, Sunderfolk is right up your alley. This is a unique title designed around playing with friends but also enjoyable solo. The village of Arden is under attack from corruption, and your heroes are called up to save it, with 6 individual characters to choose from, all having their own relationships in the village and roles in combat. The story is nothing out of this world, but the gameplay and abilities are well done and very smooth, and the main selling point is that only 1 copy of Sunderfolk is needed for up to 4-player co-op. This is possible because the free mobile app turns your phone into your character sheet and controller, making the game usable for Steam remote play, Discord sharing, sharing, or even local couch co-op. There's even a free trial available on Steam that lets you play the first 4 missions. If you're feeling burned or disappointed by Civ 7, give Old World a try. A classic 4X with a little bit of Crusaders Kings blended in, Old World actually comes from the lead designer of Civilization 4. Build your legacy and follow it through each generation and age with 7 kingdoms in the base game, each having their own unique noble families. Not only will you manage your empire and cities, but politics, events, and characters that will grow old and change over time with you. Technology advancement and industry are revamped and deeper as well, making this not a one-to-one clone of Civilization, and that's a good thing. DLCs add even more depth to the game, with the most recent one, Wrath of Gods, released on March 3rd. I recommend this to any fan of 4X that is looking for something deeper and more innovative than the main option. Cruising with an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam, Tactical Breach Wizards is not your typical turn-based tactics game. Although this one definitely leans more towards a puzzle-style game, it's got a crazy world where magic and military mix, unique characters with a lot of sarcastic and witty dialogue, and a rewind mechanic that does just enough to make it not feel too punishing to the player. The game is cheaper than a lot of other games to begin with, and if you think a game like this can't have any replayability, there is already a Steam workshop full of player-created levels and missions for you to enjoy. Tainted Grail Conquest is connected to the recently released hit RPG with the same name, but plays much differently. Not quite your normal roguelike deck builder, Conquest includes some resource management and survival style mechanics similar to RPGs, which is great if you're looking for something outside of the norm with these games. Choose from 9 classes that all play very differently, along with over 450 cards, 300 plus passive skills, 50 masteries, and much more that you'll use while questing, saving NPCs, and building up your village in this dark fantasy setting. Full voice acting, great graphics, and a decent story are the icing on the cake, but progression can feel a little slow, and enemy variety is a bit lacking after a while, so a sale, especially at this price, is the perfect time to grab it. King Arthur Knight's Tale is a challenging experience where you will fight to restore Camelot after a dark curse and slay the now undead King Arthur. Recruit legendary heroes like Sir Lancelot and Morgan Le Fay as you explore maps in real time, which I will say they're large and the movement is a little clunky, and fight bandits, rebels, and the undead in turn-based tactics battles. Knight's Tale has a surprising amount of player choice in how you want to rule Camelot, and mechanics similar to XCOM as far as base building, injury management, and permadeath for your knights. For a shorter experience in the same vein, you can pick up the second game in the series, King Arthur Legion 9, where you play as undead Roman Legion, but again it is a shorter experience and kind of like an expansion into the universe more so than an actual full game, coming in at around roughly 15 hours of playtime. Skald is a very retro party-based RPG with turn-based tactics combat. Everything about this, from the graphics to the art style and the music, just makes me feel like playing an old arcade game when I was a kid. But don't let that fool you, this is a very dark, Lovecraft-inspired world full of horror, tragedy, and death. Build your character and party how you want, selecting from a group of allies with their own skill sets, agendas, and personalities, all while crafting and cooking to prepare yourself for the journey that runs about 15 to 20 hours of playtime. Songs of Conquest is a Heroes of Might and Magic style game combining strategic thinking with kingdom management and turn-based tactics battles. Expand your kingdom and build your towns with a wide variety of maps and biomes to loot and explore, including randomized maps to increase replayability. The combat here is deep with a mix of troop abilities and magic, along with 4 campaigns, 4 factions, and an in-game map editor that allows you to create your own adventures. This really is a great price, and Songs of Conquest also recently released a new DLC. Crawl Tactics is a roguelike tactical RPG that's actually a bit misleading because you won't see how deep it really is at first. This is a good old-fashioned retro-feeling dungeon crawler with an incredible amount of options and ways to build out your character and team composition. Story is there, but not much of a focus as combat, loot, and inventory management takes center stage, and Crawl Tactics does a great job of being simple enough to jump right in and understand, yet difficult to master. You'll battle all kinds of enemies as you adventure through procedurally generated maps and dungeons, but the layers and different ways to approach this game will only be exposed as you dig deeper in, so there can be a bit of a learning curve and the difficulty is steep at times. The developer is very active though, recently adding in the 2.0 update that revamped entire systems and mechanics and added the more accessible quest mode to the game. With yet another recent DLC that just dropped and is on sale, it is the perfect time to jump into Wartales. Your mercenaries will explore the open world and enter into a standard turn-based tactics combat phase when they encounter enemies. There is also full character customization and permadeath, however there are a lot of systems here and it has a pretty steep learning curve. You will need to pick good and bad traits for your characters as well as professions and manage things like hunger and resources. Wartales can be a bit grindy, but with all the DLC and updates it's received, it's really turned into quite the experience. The modern classics XCOM 1 and 2 are games that every turn-based tactics fan should have. XCOM 2 is the definitive squad tactics experience, and its expansion War of the Chosen just makes it that much deeper with new enemies and hero units. A ton of soldier customization, permadeath, and literally thousands of mods make it so that you can fine-tune this gaming experience to however you want it to be. You can even grab Enemy Unknown, the first game in the modern XCOM reboot series, that has more of a tense horror movie feel to it, and even though it's a little bit older, it really doesn't feel as dated as you might think. Developed by one of the creators of the original XCOM, Julian Gollop, Phoenix Point is the closest XCOM-like experience that there is. You fight against a virus that is mutating mankind, all while managing multiple bases, squads, and a global front. While the production level and polish overall is not as high as the XCOM series, the complexity is much deeper, with even the base game having a lot of features that are similar to the Long War mod in XCOM 2. On top of that, Phoenix Point has a lot of DLC packs and a huge overhaul mod of its own called Terror from the Void that reworks a lot of the base game systems and adds even more enemies on top of it. This is a worthwhile squad-based tactics experience, and if you're looking to jump in, now is the best time to be able to grab the base game or all of the DLC. Even if you're just a casual Marvel fan, Midnight Suns is a very good turn-based tactics game. The card combat system that you've likely heard about is not as limiting as it looks on the surface, and the production value and polish here is top-notch. Midnight Suns has a good-sized roster of well-known and slightly more obscure heroes that all manage to play pretty distinctly different from each other. That makes finding synergies and the right combinations feel very satisfying. If you like a deep story and world, the narrative is a huge focus in Midnight Suns, as well as character building and relationships. Not to mention, now that all the DLC has been released, the Legendary Edition can get you all of the extras at one great price. Starvaders is a fantastic blend of nostalgic arcade goodness and turn-based tactics combat. Loosely based on the classic Space Invaders, this roguelike deck builder puts you in control of mech pilots fighting off an alien assault. Each mech and pilot has their own abilities and unique playstyles, from overheating to using swords and cards like shurikens or psychically controlling puppets to do everything for you. Top that off with great enemy variety, a rewarding meta progression system that is surprisingly deep, and strategic boss battles that I couldn't wait to get back to at the end of every region. Starvaders also recently released a huge update, adding in sandbox mode and many quality of life improvements. The discount isn't amazing, but this game feels like such a hidden gem, with the 98% positive reviews agreeing. Do you love strategy games but hate randomness and having to give so many orders? Well, Zero Orders Tactics might be the solution. Instead of a worthless general giving orders on the battlefield, you're a god, creating terrain and terraforming it instead. Everything in combat is fully predictable, your units will have set pathfinding, and your only job is to influence the outcomes with spells, changing unit classes, and maybe completely terraforming the composition of the battlefield. Zero Orders Tactics is more of a puzzle-ish, Into the Breach styled game with roguelike progression and a big focus on experimentation and replayability. And while the premise of it sounds very simple, it's definitely still challenging. Metaphor ReFantazio is a tactical turn-based RPG from the developers of Persona, and in some ways their masterpiece. A combination of refined mechanics from their previous games set in a new universe and setting that is much more dark fantasy. Sitting at over 90% positive on Steam, you might have seen Metaphor at the Game Awards as well. After the king is assassinated, an orphaned boy goes on a quest to lift the curse from the prince of the land, his childhood friend, gathering a party, adventuring across the kingdom, and rallying support from its people while trying to find a way to save the prince. If you're a JRPG fan, this one is a must-play. Steamworld Heist is unique and not your typical turn-based tactics game. You play as a band of robot pirates, and each mission is a ship that's procedurally generated. Don't let the art style fool you, it can actually be a fairly challenging game. There is a modified grid movement system with full and partial cover, but the big mechanic here is that you can ricochet shots off of walls and objects to clear levels and enemies with crazy trick shots and well thought out positioning. Missions are generally pretty quick, and this is a nice fun game to just drop in and play, although to complete it will probably only take you about 15 to 20 hours. Steamworld Heist II, in my opinion, is one of the best turn-based tactical releases of last year. The sequel is masterfully done, taking on all of the mechanics from the first game and improving them, while pairing a bigger open world with flexible exploration, job, and class systems. Even better feeling combat and fully customizable difficulty settings are the icing on the cake, as players can really define their own experience with this game. And of course, there's a killer performance by steam-powered Draft. A game that really needs no introduction. If you somehow haven't played Darkest Dungeon yet, this is definitely one you should grab. A phenomenal atmosphere and combat system with plenty of horrific bosses and dungeons to crawl through to your heart's content. Not to mention the modding community of this game, which is huge and recently released an overhaul mod called the Black Reliquary. It can definitely be a little grindy and punishing, but at a price like this, I really can't recommend it enough. So, if you ever wanted to star in your own homicidal game show, that's what Showgunners is, pitting contestants against criminals, murderers, and psychopaths to see who can survive. While there is no character creator and light customization, the combat layer is actually very polished and well done here with XCOM style abilities, movement, and kill cams. I think it goes without saying that this one can also get pretty gory and graphic. In between encounters and ambushes, you'll be navigating a booby trap filled arena in real time just to keep things interesting, and it actually comes together a lot better than you might think. Showgunners is a hidden gem for anybody who really enjoys the turn-based tactic combat style of XCOM, and it even has a free DLC add-on. Troubleshooter Abandoned Children is one of the longer XCOM likes out there and is kind of a blend with Persona. Obviously it has more of an anime art style, but Troubleshooter also comes from Korean developers, so some of the translations and dialogue can feel a little stiff or off. However, the combat is fun and the game leans a lot into a power fantasy style of play with massive amounts of enemies in some missions. There is a little bit of a grind in this game, and that also means that the missions can take quite some time to complete, and the overall difficulty of Troubleshooters is fairly high. But if you like deep storylines and world building, all of these characters are written pretty well and they all have their own individual relationships. If you're interested, this is the price to grab it at and at least try it. Augmented Empire is a cyberpunk squad-based tactics game that was originally on the Oculus. It's a bit of a streamlined XCOM style where you'll gather your crew, step into a dystopian city full of corruption, and spark a revolution to overthrow the elite. The story, art style, and voice acting is very good and arguably the focus here, as the combat is fun but probably not the most challenging for veterans of this genre. It does mix in a few unique mechanics to separate it from the pack, and really is just a nice pick up and play type of game if you like this style setting. With only 26 missions, it's not the longest either, but I think the price makes it at least worth a look. The Last Spell is a really innovative take on turn-based strategy. In an attempt to banish all magic from the world, you must make sure that the last spell is cast, requiring multiple days of uninterrupted incantation. To do this, you will repair and build your defenses during the day, and use your heroes to defend the last city of humanity by night from the evil and monsters outside. Your squad of heroes has stats, items, perks, and all the RPG fixings, combined with long, roguelike style runs and a progression system that'll keep you coming back for more. If you're looking to make a run into the Warhammer strategy games, there may not be a better time to jump in. They're pretty much all on sale with good deals. For a small dash of turn-based kingdom management and large-scale real-time battles, you can buy the Total War games or the trilogy. On the turn-based tactics side of things, the most XCOM-like game would probably be Chaos Gate Daemon Hunters, where you play as the Grey Knights fighting to stop a massive plague from Nurgle. Or if you prefer the Adeptus Mechanicus fighting the Necrons, the original Mechanicus game is dirt cheap and a great way to prime for Mechanicus 2, which should be coming soon. For a larger scale version of tactics, there's Warhammer Battle Sector, which actually has a pretty good variety of game modes and a solid campaign that follows the Blood Angels through the destruction of Baal. For a grand strategy 4X style game, there's Gladius, which is a little bit like Civilization except it doesn't have any diplomacy. Lastly, the Warhammer version of Baldur's Gate 3 Rogue Trader is a massive RPG with turn-based tactics battles and a very good recent DLC. I will say that all of these Warhammer games have some form of DLC attached, and if you want a better breakdown on all of these games in one video including pros and cons and their DLCs, click through to the video on screen now.